He is our personal Savior, and He is the creator of this beautiful earth. I have seen the beauty of the earth. Guatemala is one of the prettiest countries, some of the most beautiful farmland, some of the most beautiful scenery I've seen in my entire life. I just got back from a trip with Wade and with Bonnie and Chuck Jackson. Many of you know Chuck Jackson, but we saw some of the most beautiful sights. Not only was the area completely filled with mountains, but there was also volcanoes. These volcanoes were really, really awesome. How they stood above all of the terrain, all above the mountains. They stood by themselves. This is one that was active. Most of the ones we seen didn't have a whole lot of smoke coming out of it, but that one was. This is another one not too far from where we were working. This was a road that we took coming up to our work area, and it was a real bumpy road, but that was the scenery that we saw when we came back. I mean, that's going down, looking at that double peak. Well, here we are at the airport at Guatemala. Can you tell we were excited to be there? Smiles on our faces, ready to go, ready to work, and we were just tickled pink. This was a typical scene that we saw every day, and I've only got a few minutes, and I've got over 200 pictures, so I'll try not to bore you too much. But this is a scenery we've seen every day, where the farmers would take their cattle and they would go up to the pastures, and those are the pastures. They would bring their oxen up to the pastures, their cows, even their horses and pigs. They would take them up the road and graze them in this farmland, and every day, and then they'd go back home. They'd march these cows back and forth. This is a view from where we were staying. This is the deck there to the lower right, looking at the mountain range there. In the far distance, you could also see another volcano. This was our patio. This is where we oftentimes met as we discussed what we did the day and what we're going to do the next day. Those steps going down, that goes into the garage. And there's our friendly Wade. He's standing there posing for us. He had a great time. This was our kitchen. This is where we did all of our cooking when we had time. And it was kind of small, but it was very apropos for us. There was 6 of us that went, in addition to Max, who is the right-hand man of Danny. Don't know how he got in that picture again, but he seems to like being in the picture. So we took him. This was a receiving area just off the kitchen. And there's Chuck Jackson. Many of you remember him, and those of you that don't, he used to attend here quite faithfully. He lives in Macon. He was also part of our group. Moving on to some of the kids, one of the most fascinating things we found was these kids. Everywhere you went, these kids swarmed around you, especially when you pass out candy. These were some of the girls and some of the boys that we met. This was sitting outside the church. We went to worship Sunday night at one of the worship services there. It was a great service, except I couldn't understand a word they were saying. It was all Spanish. But this was outside of the church grounds. The kids were sitting out there. And, of course, Papa Lynn couldn't help but pass out his little Twizzlers, and they kind of liked me more for that. These are some more kids that were up towards the work area where we worked. That's a little dark there, but just a real sweet little girl. Another boy, part of it. This little boy on the right is mentally retarded, and I just had a soft spot in my heart for him because he just he loved us. You could tell he loved us because he even leaned up against me. After we got to know him a little bit, he kind of leaned up against me and, didn't really throw his arms around me, but you could tell he was full of love. And he did that to, I think, Wade, I'm not sure. But these kids were amazing. And his little sister there, the little kids take care of the littler kids. Mother is about doing her own business. Dad's out in the field farming. And the little girls take care of the other kids. This is another picture of him. He's kind of confused what he's doing, but but he was always there. These were a couple of kids down the pathway into the road, and I took a picture of them because it kind of shows how dirty Guatemala is. Guatemala is the most beautiful country I think I've ever seen, but it's dirty. There's not too much cement. It's all dirt. And these kids, I don't think had their hair washed in over a month. And they're loving kids, wonderful kids. You can see the sucker I guess that's a little girl. I couldn't figure out if it was a girl or a boy, but there's a sucker in her mouth. That was one we gave her. Couldn't help it. That's another picture of her. I'm just showing you these pictures because these are the kids that we came in contact with. That little boy was sitting in a field all by himself just screaming. He just screamed on and on and on and on, wouldn't stop screaming. And I started to walk towards him because I didn't know what was going on. And this little girl ran ahead of me. And she went over and picked him up, and he stopped crying immediately. So you're going to see some more pictures of the little girl and the little boy. This was another little boy at another one of our casitas that we were building. Danny took a look at him and assumed or figured out that he had a cleft palate. And so because of his cleft palate, he didn't talk. And so Danny looked into his mouth and he said, all that's wrong with this boy is he's got a cleft palate. They can't afford to go to the doctor. So he says, I'm going to set up an appointment with the surgeon. And he set up an appointment for the surgeon. And I believe this is a shot here where he's dressed and ready to go. It was supposed to be a turning point for this child's life. Got to the surgeon, and the surgeon said there's nothing physically wrong with him. So we're not sure really what was going on, but his name is Diego. I got a couple pictures of him, and this thing isn't working. Okay. There's that little girl with the little boy again, and there you can see how dirty they are. They're just not kept clean, and it's heartbreaking when you go and see the how poor these people live. It's just it really takes your breath away because how could people live like that? And yet these people, they were so grateful for us to build a 12-foot by 17-foot steel shed for them, and that's where they slept. And hopefully I'll get a chance to show you some of the beds we put in there, but that's a little girl with another baby. And again, our friend Wade is in there. And Bonnie, she took great care of the kids that were all around us. And she just loves these kids. We all loved them. Now that's that bumpy road that we come up to do our work. Those were some kids that were hanging out there. We saw them quite often. I'm showing you these pictures to kind of show you the kids. We were constantly swarmed with kids. Again, this is the cornfields that they work in. And Chuck and Wade, they kind of were having a little fun with the kids, took a little break, and this is how they took a break, playing with the kids. Okay, we're going to start working now. There I am. I'm working. Believe it or not. We were clearing out a flat area for our casita to be built on. Some of the hardest work was flattening these things out because they're on a steep grade, and we flattened it all out. This was the first family that we built a casita for. The older lady there, she is the one that does all of the work around the area. She does all the washing with the help of that little girl next to her. I did get in a couple of these. But these are some of the areas that we were working in. That is Mateo. His name is Matt, and that's how they call him over there. That's Spanish for that. The little boy in the foreground, again, that's the one who's retarded, and that's I'm assuming that's his grandmother. But wonderful people. Here we are setting the foundations. Basically, the foundations were 3 pairs of 4x4s standing upright, and then we put a beam over the top of it, and then on top of that we put the metal. We're still laying it out there. This was lunchtime. It was our last supper in the work area. When we started eating, the kids started swarming around us. And I tell you what, there's nothing more heartbreaking than trying to eat lunch with all the kids who are starving, just coming up around you. Well, I fortunately made 2 sandwiches, and I took 1 sandwich and cut it up in 8 little pieces and passed it out. And these kids they savored every bite of that. And so when we discussed it back at our quarters, it was decided that we wouldn't be taking lunch with us anymore. So we'd eat a late breakfast just before we get out, and as soon as we got back, we would eat. But this is a young mother of that first family. I don't think she's over 16 years old, but that's a brand new baby. And she was busy caring for the little baby, so we didn't see very much of her. Oops. I don't know what happened there. That's another picture of her holding her baby. That didn't get turned around right. Okay, here we are. The sides are all up on the casitas, and we're beginning to mix the cement floor. And this is how it's done. We bring in a pile of sand, and then we bring in a certain mixture of cement and stir it in there. And then on top of that, we put a gravel. The gravel is put on it. And you can see how it's kind of shaped like a volcano with the whole inside full of rock and full of mixed compound. And then we would begin to stir it up and eventually flow it out on the floor, and that was what their floor was. Remember that up to this point, they're sleeping on dirt. That's how they sleep. There is no floor. So this was how we blessed them. We built these casitas with the cement floor. This is their wash area, and right there where that blue drinking tub is, there's a cement. It's a 2-piece cement wash basin, and that's how they wash their dishes, and that's how they wash their clothes, and then they hang them up all around there. But they literally get down and scrub these clothes by hand on that cement wash basin. There we are, flattening out the area and measuring for the posts to go in. And again, we're still working. Wade is digging the holes for the posts there, and the man on the left, Mateo, he was kind of the straw boss next to the real straw boss. There I am. And these are the sides going up. They're just corrugated aluminum that's screwed into place with little washers on the screws. And then the top is the same thing on a slope, and that's the extent of it. This is another picture of the cement floor, how they mix it and get ready to spread it. Here they are spreading it some more. These people here, these were the second people that we went to do work for. And come to find out, she plays the keyboard, he plays the guitar. They're very devoted Christians. And they sang us a song at our pleading, and we tried to get him to play the guitar. He wouldn't do it, but very good. And of course, they sang in Spanish. It had a real good beat to it, and it sounded pretty, but I couldn't understand a word they were saying. These are the streets. These are typical streets where I believe this one was going into town. Where we stayed was, I forgot the name of it. I knew I was going to do that. But anyway, they're manufacturers of boots, and all these stores similar to this were stores where they make boots. There must have been 20 shops where you could shop for boots, and they're all handmade. This was one of the streets going into town, and as you can see, the buildings are all tied together. There is no property lines there. They're just all built together. This was a marketplace that we were heading to, and people swarmed around all of that, and there's a couple more pictures here. I want to show you some pictures of the dogs. Everywhere we went, there were dogs. They weren't very well cared for or kept. They were skinny, malnutritioned, and so I took a few pictures of the dogs. This was Wade's favorite dog. He loved to play with him, but still skinny, and he was just a real good dog. There's another dog. I just took a few pictures of some of the dogs just to show you how they run loose and free. And they're all over the place. I don't know who takes care of them, just whatever they can get. This is one that we really literally thought he crawled in the grass to die. As you can see, the mange is all over him. It's just a puppy. And I didn't put that in there to make you sad or upset, but I'm showing you these to show you how poor these people are. And there's dogs running everywhere. This is what we finished up the casitas with. We put a bed like that in each of the casitas. Now, these people were so fascinated with that, and they loved it, and it's just something they never dreamed was possible. You could tell the girls are happy sitting in it. Is that a look of happiness and joy? Just full of happiness. And that, again, is the bed that we put in each one of these casitas. This was the first family that we did. After the casitas are finished, we would all get together in the evening, and we would bless the casitas, and we would gather together and take pictures. Well, this was the first family. The little boy in the right in the front, that's the retarded boy. They had shaved all of his head off, and it exposed all of the sores that he had on his head. They call him a headbanger because he just hits his head on everything. But there's no way to care for him because they don't have the money. More of the same family. Okay, Danny and Max are in the back on the right. Those are our head men. Without Danny on the left, these missions wouldn't be possible. Danny has been a good friend of Rob's for some time, and it is a mission that we support now. And Danny he's not a well man, but he goes there, 4 times a year? I think it's about 4 times a year he goes there. And Max, the man on his right, is the one that does all the work. I mean, he does everything. He's really an awesome man. I wish I could communicate with him in Spanish, but I couldn't. But he picked up on a few of the words. He knew we loved him. More of the same. This is the second casita we built, and those were the people that we served there. And again, Max and Danny in the back. Danny and Max. This was the third family. After we blessed their casita, he gave one of the nicest prayers, I think. It was a very long-winded prayer, but he obviously knew the Lord, and he was very blessed by what we gave him, and they were so grateful to us. More of the same. That was Danny giving him a little talk, blessing. More pictures of the same. This is the whole group. There's Ralph is far to the right. He was one of the team members who came from Louisiana, I think. I'm pretty sure. You guys ought to know him. And then next to him, of course, is Bonnie, and then Mateo, and Wade, and myself, and Chuck. That's the entire team with the exception of Max and Danny and the family. More of the same. Again, these are the streets. We took a trip to, Danny called it the lake. On our final day, he decided to treat us to something. We had worked real hard, and we really didn't have time to do anything else but work, eat, and sleep. And on the final day, Saturday, we took a trip to, I forgot what the name of the city was, but he called it the lake. Some of the most beautiful scenery. That's what you saw. There's about 4 volcanoes in that whole area with the lake in between. It was just beautiful. And I took a video on it where I panned the whole thing, but I couldn't get the video to work. So this is our main man. Next to Danny, he's the one that put it all together, put all the casitas up, drove us to and fro, and just he was there for every need. And that's Max and Danny together. Again, Danny is the one responsible for this whole mission. This was one of the stores on our trip down to the lake there. This was, they had these things set up on the way, and you could go in there. And most of the things for sale was handbags and purses and beads and little craft stuff like that. This is the entire team. The people in the front, except for Bonnie, that's Max's family. And we grew to love his family tremendously. What a wonderful family they were. On our way, we came across this waterfall. It's the only waterfall we saw. But you could see it goes way up there, trickles down, and comes down level, and comes down again, and it even comes down below that. That's the final one. Don't ask me how I got up there. It was easier getting up than it was coming down. I was very fearful of coming down because I didn't know how I was going to get down, so I slid on my butt. And I did get down. You could see the little boy jumping down from about half the way up. Again, this was the team. This is the team that went down to the lake. We rode in a big van, and this was all of us here. The lady right in front of me is Max's wife, and that's our little boy, Estefan. And man, for some reason, he just clung to me, and it really tore me up because I loved it so much. That's another picture of that lake area. You can see the town down on the left. That's where we ended up, down there. And again, the team, that's Max's family along with Danny. And that's it. I did it. I didn't think I was going to get it in time, but that's it. And I think I've got a couple of minutes. What I would like to do to you is instill a desire to go visit this place. You'll come back blessed. I was so excited my poor wife had listened to me till about midnight because I couldn't stop talking. It is an eye-opener. When you go to another part of this world and you see the poor, the way people are living in poverty, literally poverty, you feel almost guilty coming back home and sleeping on your nice soft bed in your 3-bedroom house. Some have more. But it makes you feel guilty. And so the least I could do is just go over there and help build these little huts. We built 3 of them, and with more people we could build more. With more support we could build more. And I almost feel guilty living in a home when I could be supporting them with more money. What I'm trying to do is not raise money, but I want you to go there. If you get an opportunity and you can, go there, please. And see for yourself the other part of the world. God has blessed us so tremendously that just get on your knees and thank God every day for what we've got. Because He has blessed America for a reason. And if we take God out of America, we could stand to end up just like that very easily. God can take away everything that He's given. So I would encourage you, if you can, to sign up for the next one. They've got a mission trip there in February. And if you can, go to it. I have to say, I don't know if I'll make it or not. I don't know if I can take it because it really is, it's an eye-opener. But anyway, God bless you all.